Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. So in this live coding session, I'm going to continue the link sharing application that we started last time. And in this session, we're going to add actually session support. So when you log in, this time you stay logged in. And I'm also going to add server-side rendering. I think I'm going to do that first, because it takes a little bit of setup. And once we get that complete, that will pretty much finalize the setup of the project. And then we can start building out more and more sophisticated functionality. So as usual, like I said in the first session, this is not an instructional video, so I won't be going over all the nuances in detail. I will not be going at instructional speed. I'll be going a little bit closer to regular live speed. But that being said, if you have any questions or anything like that, just drop a message in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer whatever I can. So let's get started. I'm going to open up my terminal. I'm saving into the project, so links. I'm going to run an npm run dev in another terminal window, and then the dev server. And then I'm going to open up the project. I'm going to do this one in Atom this time. I'm trying to start use this more often. So let's give this a shot. Okay, let's see now. So I have the, oh, I forgot to run Mongo. So run the Mongo server, and then try this again. All right, head over to localhost 3000. And here's where we left off last time. There is currently no one logged in. So let me check the API, see what I have on the profile side. Okay, so here are the profiles I currently have on the back end. Let me try logging one in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and that worked because you can see here the name changed. So the login is still connected and everything still works fine there. But I'm not actually logged in, right? Because there's no session management. If I reload the page, this is currently, it goes back to logged out. And then another thing I want to take care of today is the server-side rendering. So right now it's pure client-side rendering. There's no HTML being rendered here. That's for the React code. This is all from the template. So I want to take care of that right now. Let's do that first, actually, so that we can just get that out of the way. So let's see here. Here's the index.mustache where the React code is mounted, and here is the actual React source, these two, the bundled source code. And here's the head tag, and here's where the React is mounted. If we open up the, can I get rid of these DS stores? Okay, if we open up the gulp file, JS, you'll see that we have a gulp 6 to 5 module. And inside the build, we have an ES6 to ES5 module that takes the React source code and compiles an ES5 version in the public dist directory. So if we open up public dist and then ES5 right here, we'll see all of our React code as an ES5 in the ES5 version. So if I open up one of the components, like the home component, you'll see an ES5 version of our home component. So what I want to do is throw this over into the src directory. So instead of public, we want src and then just an ES5 version. So inside the src directory, I don't know why these DS stores keep popping up. Inside this src directory, we're going to have another folder called ES5, which will be compiled every time we run the build script. You can see right here in the production and the default script. So let's go ahead and test that. So I'm going to turn this off, and then we're going to do npm run build. And this should create an ES5 directory in here. And there it is. And it should be removed from the public dist directory, which it is. So now our ES5 code can be accessed from here. And if you look at the package.json in the clean script, that's where the public directory is wiped out prior to every build. I'm going to add the ES5 to that. So we want to also get rid of the src ES5 directory on every clean so that this gets a fresh build every time we run the npm build script. So if I run npm run build again, this should now go away. It does, and then it should recompile back in the same spot. And that's what we want to see. And here it is, just recompiled back in the same spot. So now we have an ES5 build in the src directory that we can access from the server side. I think technically now you don't need to do this anymore. I'm not entirely sure, depending on what version of Node you're running on the server. But right now I'm still playing it safe and just running an ES5 version for the sake of the server in case it can't run ES6, or even just for the sake of the JSX. So either way, it couldn't hurt to compile it back down. So here we have our index.js, where the route is the route that's servicing the home page is right here inside the routes directory index.js. I have a couple sample endpoints here that I'm just going to get rid of because we don't really need this. So what we want to do here is grab our React modules from the ES5 directory, the src ES5 directory, and then render them server side, and then get them back into the template here as pre-rendered HTML. That's server-side rendering. So that's what we want to set up right now. There's a couple more steps we got to do to make this work. So let's go ahead and get this set up. I'm going to get rid of all this dummy data. Right now it's just in the way, so let's just get rid of it. And for now, let's do const initial data. And then we're just going to pass that in with nothing inside. All right, that's good for now. So let's see how we want to do this. If I go to my components from last time, we have our home, our index, and then our containers. I'm going to do a little bit of reorganization here. This home component, which is where everything currently loads, is really its own entry point. So I'm going to create another directory inside the src, about the components, and I'm going to call the directory entry. I'm going to cd into it. These are entry points, so like basically pages. And then we're going to go inside here, and then touch home. Okay, and then we're just going to move the components over. So we now have that done, and then we're going to get rid of these. Inside the entry, we have our home component, our home entry point, which references containers in the same directory, but now we got to move it one level up because it's no longer in the same directory path. And then inside the index here, the home is no longer inside components. It's inside the components/entry, like so. So if we run the npm build again, all we're doing here is we're confirming that the file paths didn't break. We didn't like overlook anything with regard to the file paths, which is very possible. So I'm just being careful here. All right, and then if I run the dev server, basically nothing should change, visually at least. And so we're good to go there. Okay, good. Now, what we want to do, this src index right here is the main entry point. But what I want to do is create a separate dedicated entry point just for the home page. That's gonna hit the client side. That's gonna actually do the mounting. So basically, I want to repeat this component just for the home component. So if we go back to the entry directory, so cd src components cd entry. I'm going to create another directory called client, cd into that, and this is where all the actual client hitting endpoint entry points are going to be. So I'm going to create another one called home, and then this src index right here. I have too many things open right now. This is basically going to serve that purpose. So we go to the components, entry, client, and then home, and then like that. And then this file path is not going to work. So it's going to be like that. Like that, excuse me. And then this file path will also break. So see here, up one, I always lose track of this. So this is client, and then entry, and then containers, components, and stores. So this is how it should look. So this is now the correct file path. So now if we run the build, before I run the build, I'm going to go to webpack config, and instead of referencing this entry point, I'm going to change the name of the entry point itself to home, and then I'm going to do src components, and then entry, and then client, and then home.js, like that. And this basically will be its own entry point. And then what I normally do is I'll have multiple entry points instead of just one, each for different templates, different mustache templates. That's a pretty common way of organizing your React entry points. It's pretty standard. I've seen that in a lot of code bases. So right now I'm just testing to make sure that everything is properly set up, make sure I didn't mess up any file paths or anything like that, which I probably did. So we're going to find out in a few seconds. Okay, so the build is successful. Now keep in mind, if I run the server, and I reload this, nothing's going to show up. Let me show you why. Because if you look at the source code, the build right now is still referencing the old entry point app.js, but that entry point has been removed in favor of home.js. So if you look at the public dist bundle, now you'll see a home.js instead of an app.js. But we got to change that inside the views template as well. So index views, and then home.js. And this should just fix that problem. So if I reload, I should be back in business. But I clearly have a mistake here. So let's see what's going on here. So if I run the dev, let's see what happens. Comments on, all right. Okay, let's see if the provider is the only problem. So let me get rid of this. Okay, I probably mistyped an import somewhere. So let's figure this out. Client home.js, and then home. This is the mistake right here. So I go up one, and then like that. Okay. I always mess this part up. And then pre. Okay, that's the right file path. And that's back in business. I feel like I'm messing this up though. So it's 1, 2. Am I? All right. Yeah, it looks like it's good. Okay. So our code is now back to where it was before. But I'm using this home.js file right here, specifically this one, as the entry point rather than the old one, this guy right here. So we can actually just get rid of that. Let's do that. And just for good measure, I'm going to run one more complete build, the one more complete production build, just to make sure I really got everything straightened out. And then from there, I'm going to start setting up the server-side rendering. All right, let's run the dev server. All looks good. Alrighty, so now let's set up the server-side rendering. So I ran a complete build from scratch just now, and that means we have a fresh ES5 build right here, and we want to reference these in the server because there's no doubt that the server can read that no matter what version of Node you're running because it's all ES5, which is the whole point. So let's go ahead and open up the index.js and from the routes directory and start referencing some of these files. So first thing we need to do is import just the usual React stuff. So we want React, obviously. We want React DOM. And let's see what else we want. We want the entry point. So we're going to want this entry point right here, this guy right here. Right, so we want home src es5 components entry home, like that. Now we've grabbed the home component from the ES5 modules so that the server can read it fine. And then we also want to grab some of the Redux stuff because keep in mind the Redux is already connected. So we want to set up get all the Redux stuff already properly set up. So ES5 stores. Okay. And then we also want to grab a function from the utils directory right here called render components. So I built a function, sort of a convenience method, that will take these components and render them with the initial data so that I don't have to rewrite that functionality over and over again. It's built into the React scaffold in Turbo, so everyone is welcome to use it. It's just there for your convenience if you want it. Render components. All right, there it is. So let's look into that real quick. So here is the render components function. It takes an initial state, which is the store, the Redux store, and then whatever component you want to generate, and it returns this JSON object, which gives you two keys, the React key. This is the actual React component converted into HTML, the literal server-side rendered components with the Redux stuff already in there. And then this is the initial data. So what we want to do is we want to get the initial data. And if you look at the actual store, currently our store consists of one reducer, which is user. So we want to add a user reducer right here. And then inside the user reducer, the default states are all and current user, which is null, the initial states. So let's go ahead and set those two up like so. And then that's going to be our initial data. So if you look at render components, to call the function, we pass in the initial state and then the component. So the initial state, let's say const data, equals render components, we pass in not just the initial data, but we pass in the store, and then the configure function, and then the initial data, and then the component, which is home. That's this home component right here. So the initial data, the store configure option, basically what we're creating here is a store instance, is what I'm trying to say. And if you look at the stores index, you'll see that there's a configure function which takes an initial state, and then that will return the store. So we have to create a store instance on the server, which we're doing right here, and then passing that into the render components. So probably, to be honest, a better name for this, a better name for the actual function itself would be, hold on, let me find it again. Utils. A better name for this argument would be store, to be totally honest, or configured store or something like that, but you get the idea. And now that we have the data, this data has two keys, react, ... and initial, ... I keep that in mind. So this is the initial store that state that we pass to the actual browser, and this is the pre-rendered React code. So to make sure that this works, we actually want to pass this in like so. What we want to do is now go back to our template right here, index.mustache, and render the React code in here, just using regular templating engine, mustache templating engine. So we want to do React, and this is a reference to the React key from the render components from this right here. And for now, that's good enough to test whether or not this even works. So let's see if what do we got here? So components, entry, and then home. So ES5 component src ES5 src ES5 components, and then components, entry, and then home. So components, src ES5 components, entry, and then home. So it's saying that this cannot be found. Let's track that sucker down. So let's see, components, entry, home. Manly Celicourt, my website is a fully published React website, so you can just look at my actual website, and you're looking at a fully published React Redux website. All right, where am I messing this up? So entry, and then containers. That looks good. Yeah, all right, so this was doomed from the start. So the src is one level up, so it should be ... src, ... src. Been a long day, I'm sorry guys. All right, let's try this again. Technically I don't need to build again, but just playing it safe. Fire up the dev server. Back in business, but hopefully we should see some HTML in here. And there it is. And that's the pre-rendered HTML from our React components. Now, it may look like we're done, but we're not. We have to now pass in the store, the initial data from the actual store itself. So Now we got to do a little bit more pre-configuration so we can pass the state or the store from the server to the client side, and then we can do our nonsense with that. So let's go ahead and get that going. So keep in mind, it's already being passed in right here inside the initial key, right? So now we need somewhere to grab it. So what you want to do is pass it off as JavaScript in here. So we want to bind it to the window like follows. Initial state, and then reference the initial key from the keys returned by the render components function. And so now we have initial state binded to the window of the DOM. So we can just reload that, and we should see some data there. Bickety bam, there it is. So now what we want to do is confirm that that's actually coming from the server by passing in some actual data. So if I take this and current user, instead of null, I can do name and then test, or not name, but email. LeBron James at gmail.com. Reload, should see that in here. There it is. So the data is being passed in from the server to the browser. However, the browser is still not registering it because we're not using it on the client side. So now we got to go back to the client side of the project. So we go to the entry, client, home, and we reference that data. So initial data, which is from the window. So we can literally just copy and paste it from the window. So this is being attached to the DOM on preload, no, on load, excuse me. And since this is being rendered client side, we can just pass that into the configure over here, and it should pass off the state from the server to the client side. So that should work. So now, since the email of the current user is lebronjames@gmail.com, no matter what I do, it should say lebronjames@gmail.com, except it didn't because I forgot to compile the code. So let me go ahead and do that right now. npm run build. Let's try it again. lebronjames@gmail.com. So the important thing here to note is that this data is coming from the server, right? So if I change this to quite literally anything else, Donald Trump at gmail.com, it should then pass off as Donald Trump at gmail.com. And once again, the important thing to note here is that the data is coming from the server. So, and that the actual React modules themselves are now being rendered from the server, as you can see here, and the initial data is being passed off here, and then the actual React client-side source is picking it up over here and doing what we tell it to do. So that is now successful. So now server-side rendering is properly configured inside of this project. So now we can move on with a little bit more of the custom application logic. So I'm going to take this out and return it back to null. I'm going to go to the user reducer. And I don't even know why I have this all key in there. So let's just get rid of that. I don't really think we need that. So I'm just going to deregister this case altogether because we don't need it. Okay. So that takes care of objective one, hooking up server-side rendering, and that has been confirmed. So now what we want to do is go back to the login, logout stuff and make sure that that actually works, right? So we have an auth.js route right here and login right here. So what we want to do next is when the user successfully logs in, so that's inside the login path, right here, we want to set the session, right? So let's go back to the app.js and let's configure . No, it's fine as is. All right, so the session right now, the default session name is vertex session. So rec.vertex session, and this is a JSON object. So ID equals profile, and we can just grab the profile ID and use that as the vertex session. Yeah, and that should do. So what we want to do next is create a simple get handler for a current user so that we can see whether or not a current user is logged in. So we have a rec and a res, and then if rec vertex session equals null, okay, so here no one's logged in, so we just indicate to the client side that there is no one logged in. Going back down here, the vertex session itself is a JSON object, so I'm going to create a user key on top of that, so .user. And so if vertex session.user is null, we'll return nothing. And then otherwise, we return and then we return the user ID in this case. Like that. So let's see how that looks. So right now, if I go to the current user endpoint, so this would be auth current user, I should see null on the user. All right, so now if I go here and I log in as myself, log in, this should now log me in as the current user. And there it is, user ID. So this user key right here is the user key that we passed in right there. And then the rest is just a JSON object, as you can see, ID, and then that's my user ID. So that confirms that the session successfully was binded to the request. So what we can do next is we can then right here, rather than actually how to put just return the user ID, we want to actually grab the user from the database. So controller profile get, it's get by ID. Yep, get by ID. And then we can just pass this in. Profile. Okay, and then here we can pass in the actual profile JSON. And then here we can, in the error block, we can just pass in null for the user, and that's it. All right, so now once I hit this endpoint again, by logging in again first. All right, I'm probably getting an error here, so let's see. User.id. Okay, that's the problem. There it is. Okay, so that worked. So now what we want is, let's see. Let's create a login handler real quick just to make sure we have it. So router.get, I'm sorry, log out. And then that's going to return just user null. But we're going to have to just set the session first, reset the session. Reset. And that'll clear the session, clear session. Now, if I hit the current user, I'm still logged in. If I do log out, that gives me null. And then if I do current user, it's back to null. And that's the behavior we want. Everything looks good on that end. So let's see here. I'm gonna try adding this as middleware instead. Well, I'm not gonna try. I'm just gonna do that. So let's see. So I'm gonna use middleware just to get the current user every single time. I think that'll make life a little bit easier. So if I go over here, here's the app.use, and then rec res next. So if you don't know what middleware, how to use middleware, basically we can just do some processing on all requests before they hit any routes, and then that's it. So like rec, let's see here, don't forget to call next. And then we want the controllers, controllers, fire, controllers. And then inside the auth, let's see, we have the current user ID, right? So okay, in the case of the vertex session being null, just do next. In other words, don't do anything. Same thing here. Else. Same thing here. Else. And then here is where we do the fetch right here. And then we grab that, put it over here, and then rec.user vertex session.user equals a profile. And we'll call next over there, and then just do nothing over here. Okay, and then running it through as middleware, I think would be a little bit more easy to handle. So let's see, and then in the auth, the current user request, we don't have to do any of these checks. We can just do rec.user, right? And then we can just get rid of all this. Because when it comes down to it, we're going to want to bind the user to every request, no matter what, whether or not the user's logged in. So there should be no situation where we don't want to know, we don't want to tell if the user is logged in or not. So let's just see what happens here. So okay. Turbo 360. Okay, so it's not showing it up right now. Let's see what's happening. Right, let's see which one of these is running. So I'm just going to run some console logs. That's 3. So that's the one we expect. Text session.user. So yeah, do we want to bind it to the vertex session or to the actual request? Let's try binding it to the request, which is what we did. So then what we want to do here is, excuse me, inside here is bind it like that. Let's try that instead. That's how Passport.js does it, so we may as well just maintain that. Okay. Now we're getting test 2. So what's going on here? Vertex session user. Yeah. And on login, user ID. Did I make that same mistake again? Did I just do that? Oh. Okay, so let's try it again. Okay, logged in. Oh, even wrong password. Okay, logged in. And there we go. Alrighty. That's what we want to see. And this time it is being binded to the actual request object. So right here, just like you would see in Passport.js. Okay, so let's see the best way to do this. So instead of current to user and then just passing in an email like this, we can now just do rec.user because this is happening on every single request anyway. So no matter what, it's either null or the actual user object. So now this should reflect whoever I'm logged in as. So you see how it already has my name because I'm already logged in. So if I log out, this is really not the correct response for logout. We want to do a redirect. Back to the home page. We can get rid of all this now. Okay, so I am still logged in as Dequan, and then if I log out, it should redirect me back to the home page. Auth, log out, but it'll say not logged in. And then if I reload the site, it's still not logged in. And then if I log in again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, log in, it has me as logged in right there. If I reload, there I am. I'm going to do one last thing to sort of finalize this process. I am going to get the session login working on the registration as well, so that when I register a new account, like I do right here, then this should also log the user in. Otherwise, it would be kind of a strange user experience to sign up and then have to log back in again. That would be a little bit unusual. So I'm now going to create another account. Let me just make sure I don't reuse any emails. I'll just go with test 2, I guess. All right, so here I'm going to do auth log out, and then I'm going to do test2 at gmail.com, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then sign up. And then this time I should be logged in as test2 at gmail.com. So if I load it again, I'm still logged in, and everything is now properly in working order as far as the auth stuff goes, as well as the server-side rendering. If you actually look at the server-side rendering here, and then you'll see that the current user now is populated with all the data from the current user. Obviously, we'll remove the password soon, as well as the user ID. That stuff shouldn't really be there. Obviously, it shouldn't be there. But the data is properly being flowed through now in the application the way I want it to be, so that we can be confident that everything is in proper working order. So Um, yeah, so that's good for now. I went a little bit fast on that. Hopefully that's working okay on your end. I think what I'll do as well as I do these live sessions is I'll create a series of posts um, on the website so that people can see the live sessions on the website as well. And then I'll have a downloadable link to the code so that people can just download the code after each session if they want to. That's fine. So if they don't get something working, because I am going a bit fast, and like I said, this is not meant to be instructional per se, um, but it is meant to deliver some value. Like it's meant to show people how certain things are done. So hopefully this makes sense. And that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.